Hello, I'm Natasha Chilingarian.
And I'm Michael Ogden. This is Shared Accounts with CU Times. The 2024 eclipse path of totality? More like the path of no-tality, am I right? Cloud joke. How was that? That was stupid, right, En?
No, that was very accurate. We're all in the path of notality now,
Yeah,
so
that's true.
we're not alone.
Thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, poor people who did all that traveling for the eclipse. Anyway, we are in the post-eclipse world. Has anything changed? No. What has stayed the same? Our podcast recording schedule. Welcome to Shared Accounts with CU Times. Coming up on today's pod, we're speaking with Miguel Polanco, who is Director of the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion at NCUA. I had a really nice conversation with him. I had never met him. The only way I'd known him was really from his nice voice and demeanor during NCUA board meetings. That chat is coming up. By the way, it was an early morning interview, so Natasha, I'm sorry you missed out on it, but let's be honest. Sleep is too wonderful to give up on the West Coast.
Hey, don't I don't want our listeners to think I'm lazy and
Oh,
just
no,
sleeping
it was
half
just
the day. Oh,
early. It
boy.
was early. It happens.
Right. Well, and I'll say, being on the West Coast, it is quite a privilege because, you get to kinda skip out on some early morning stuff, and then
Hell yeah.
at 3 p.m., all the emails just stop because everyone else is done working for the day.
Right?
Yeah, I will say it's very nice. I will say when I travel to the East Coast and I spend time, I've done this
Hmm.
in the past, where I've spent some time working over there while
Yeah.
traveling, the day is just so long. It's like never ends. So
Right.
I don't know how you all do it.
Well, here's the thing, and we'll just go ahead and talk about this. I get up, I start working about 6 in the morning, between 5:30 and 6.
I know, yeah, you're an early bird.
Yeah, so that's East Coast time, that's 7 o'clock already. And our team is spread out from east to west. And so I like to be up, and I feel so weird when I email you and it tells me it's 4 in the morning, where you are. I'm like, oh crap. Anyway, but then
Right.
yeah, I wrap up and then your day is pretty quiet when we all leave.
Pretty quiet, but then, yeah, it leaves some space to work, and then everyone else gets to see my emails like their early morning. And some of them
See,
are like, why were you working at 9 p.m.? But
yeah, it all evens
yeah,
out.
it does. It does. It's a good rhythm.
How is your week going? Been a busy one.
It's been a busy one. I am currently snowed in again. It's actually the third weekend in a row of
Okay.
snow, so it's currently still kind of fluttering out there. So that's just been kind of a drag with the
Sure.
weather.
I do need to ask you because everybody does like this little segment that we do.
Oh,
What did you
good.
watch this past week?
Okay, yeah, no, and I'm happy to hear that people are enjoying it. Well, this past week, like we just mentioned, it's been pretty busy. So I feel like at the end of the day, what I've been gravitating towards
Hmm.
are like just these kind of creepy, cheesy documentaries. Those are kind of
Okay.
my good, in between watching something a little more heavy or sophisticated. So
Yeah.
there's one I started this week called The Synanon Fix on
What?
Max.
Okay.
And it's about a drug rehab facility that formed in 1960 in
Huh.
LA, and it
Uh-huh.
turned into some kind of a cult.
Cool.
And I
Of
only
course
watched
it
one
did.
episode. Yeah, there's only one episode out. But, it made me think about how I think that's one of my favorite types of documentaries to watch is anything related to cults.
We should explore that in couples therapy.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what that says about me, but yeah, I just find it so fascinating, but I can also see how people would gravitate towards a cult because it's a way to feel extremely included and connected, but then it's like it
Mhm.
takes it too far.
But that was that time, those were those decades, 60s, 70s. It's like you couldn't help but start a cult, it seems, you know?
Yeah,
Such a weird time.
with all the social, yeah, unrest and
Yeah.
anti-war
What
movements
was
and
that
all this.
called again? So I can make a note of it.
It was called the Sin Anon Fix.
Okay.
SYN Anon. Yeah, I had to actually look it up before we recorded this because I could not
Okay.
remember. I knew it was something with Anon.
Yeah. I already found it.
Okay, cool. What about you? Hopefully you watched something a little more sophisticated.
Sophisticated. Well, I mean, I did watch a documentary, which I wasn't planning on watching it. I stumbled into it. I watched both parts. It's a two-parter documentary on Apple TV Plus about Steve Martin.
Oh,
And because, I grew up watching Steve Martin.
sure.
He was on SNL, eventually saw him on The Jerk, which I still thoroughly enjoy today. Really fun watch and sad at the same time.
Really?
First part is called Then, second part's called Now, which makes sense. But the first part is just about his stand up comedian time,
Sure.
basically from a kid to 1980, where he just hard stopped doing stand up and went into movies. He never did stand up again.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the second part is now, and so it's him today, Martin Short, and all the things they're working on, and it was really good. I would
Nice.
suggest it.
No, I am curious about
Recommend it.
that. So when I was growing up, I remember him just in movies like Father of the
Father
Bride.
of the Bride.
Yeah, that was like that's probably my first Steve Martin experience. But I will also add in there The Jerk, one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah,
So
oh
many
yeah.
iconic lines that I still think of today that, like, live in my brain.
He hates these cans. Yeah,
The other one is, "It's not about all the money, it's about all the stuff."
yeah. There you go. Oh, that was so good. Oh, I love it.
Alright, well, I guess we have to talk about our topic today, right?
Let's
So
do it. It was really good.
good, no, I am so glad to hear that. So, we got back into DEI, of course,
Hmm.
and in your conversation with Miguel, you spoke specifically about what the NCUA is doing around DEI for the industry. So, what are your thoughts on what the big industry groups like the NCUA, America's credit unions, are doing in the way of DEI?
I would say on the NCUA front, and Miguel talks about this, they are approaching it because they are congressionally mandated to do it. And I found that kind of fascinating. And
Wow.
we do talk about that part of it. But his view wasn't really necessarily to change the world. He is really focused on the culture of NCUA and hoping, in a way, that kind of seeps out into the credit union industry. They're happy to share the findings that they study and that they research, and then they hold the big conference that's coming up in June that we also talked about. How do I feel about it? It's a weird spot. We talked about it with Ronaldo recently, Ronaldo Hardy.
Right.
What America's credit unions, what they're doing, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
America's
either.
credit unions is kind of a mess right now. And in a post merger world, they're going through layoffs. They're trying to figure out the whole structure of that thing again. So I'm not sure what they're doing right now with.
Yeah, they're definitely transitioning, so this
Hmm.
definitely isn't high on their list. I think they're trying to get everything, staffing sorted out
Yep.
and all that. Yeah, I feel pretty much the same. I was thinking also back to our conversation with Ronaldo. I really agree with him that I think right now it's stagnated.
Hmm.
There's also a sense, as he mentioned, that some people are just dropping out of the conversation out of fear
Yeah.
completely. And so there needs to be some revival happening, some people that will be standing out and re engaging with this conversation. And hopefully, the conversation like the one that you had with Miguel, maybe that can
Hmm.
be part of it, part of the industry kind of breaking free of the holding pattern that it's in.
Yeah, I hope so. He genuinely, I had a blast with him. We had a great conversation.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get into it then. Let's get into our interview with Miguel Polanco. I did listen to the interview, and
Hmm.
I agree he was so smart and so nice. He hit on a lot of the important issues revolving around his work and his team's work on DEI. He talked about it both internally at the NCUA and also how the NCUA is trying to help credit unions basically become better versions of themselves.
Hmm.
He also spoke about the recent DEI report that was filed with Congress and what that data means for the agency and for the industry. And he also gave us some good food recommendations from his home island of Puerto Rico.
He did.
Yum.
It
We
was
have all
great.
of that coming up next.
Hey there, listeners. You know what? It's no surprise that our tight knit industry is seeing all this change happening on a daily basis. Let's be honest, it is tough finding time to sift through all that information that's coming to our faces all the time. That's why Credit Union Times launched a State of the Industry Town Hall webcast series. I call it State of the Industry. These panel discussions provide an interactive dialogue on the topics that are top of mind, not only to us on the editorial side of CU Times, but also to you. And they include industry experts weighing in to share their perspectives. And we also offer our vendors and suppliers an opportunity to showcase their solutions and expertise. Now, listen, our first State of the Industry will focus on the growing partnerships between credit unions and fintechs. We did explore that with our executive briefing. This will be an expansion of that. It's going to be held on Tuesday, June 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern. That is Tuesday, June 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern, totally free. I highly encourage you to attend. I have a really good time at these things, and we do a lot of participation, live Q&A, and everything like that with our audience. Please go to cutimes.com/webcast to register. That's cutimes.com/webcast to register. Joining me in the virtual studio today is Miguel Polanco, Director of the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion at NCUA. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
How are you doing today? We've never met.
No, we haven't met yet, and hopefully we will have an opportunity not so distant future. But no, doing well. Had my breakfast this morning. Didn't have my coffee, but I think I can make this.
Oh, no. Okay, let's blow through this then. You need your coffee. So we're going to get into a number of things here, but like I just said, I never met you, but over the years, I really only known you as the guy I watch on the NCUA board meeting live stream, giving DEI updates to board members. One, you got a great voice. It's really fun watching you. But two, I want to start off by asking you about your position at NCUA. As Director of Office of Minority and Women Inclusion, what does that actually mean?
Well, thank you for the question, Michael. Essentially, I mean, I'm in the position of directing the efforts of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the agency. It's a big responsibility that comes from a congressional mandate,
Mm-hmm.
Section 342 of Dodd-Frank, that calls for my office to focus on advancing, equal employment opportunity, and that's for everyone, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion within the agency. So essentially, the most important element of the work that I do is to really help create a work environment that ends up delivering positive workplace experiences for our employees. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest driver. We do also have a piece that looks at assessing the diversity practices of the industry. We don't impose those standards, but basically it's just assessing how the industry is doing in their DEI work.
Yeah, and that's a good clarification. Again, you're not imposing, you are assessing. Yeah.
Correct. That's right. Voluntarily, of course.
And also, you mentioned the congressionally mandated position. I don't have that. Congress doesn't give a crap about my job. But that seems kind of cool, though.
Well, I can tell you that it's better to have a congressionally mandated position and job because, of course, it's a statute. So it gives you a little more credence when you say we need to do this or we need to do that, or I recommend that we do this or that. So
Right.
it's helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's never going to happen on my end, but that's interesting. Okay. So, for some context, how did you end up getting involved in credit unions and then landing at NCUA?
That's an interesting question because people ask me, how do you get to be a director that works on diversity, equity, and inclusion? And
Yeah.
I call my time here at NCU like my fourth career because I've been a military officer. I have a stint sometime that I work as an investment banker,
Hmm.
and then eventually also worked as a full-time, real estate investor. But about 15 years ago, I went to work as a small business consultant with the University of Texas in San Antonio under a program that is federally funded, which is the Minority Business Enterprise Center. And while working there as a consultant, I learned a lot about federal contracting, and that's what opened the door for me to eventually work in small business program at the SBA, the Small Business Administration. I worked there some time under the what they call the 8A Small Business Program,
Hmm.
and even though I was in a specific program, I learned more broadly about other federal programs. And knowing that the NCUA, when they opened this office and with the need to develop a program for supply diversity, they eventually brought me in as the lead to actually put together that program. That was in 2011. Over time, I worked as the office deputy, and then about 3 years ago, I became the director for the office.
Very quickly, what'd you think of San Antonio?
Oh, I love San Antonio. I love my Tex-Mex, and I love my margaritas on Fridays.
My God, I have had some brilliant tequila on the Riverwalk there. Mm,
I'm sure.
so good.
I was there 12 years. It was a good run.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, anyway, I'll stop talking about that. I want to dig into more of the work that you're doing.
Okay.
First, let's start with the internal NCUA items. Recently, and we reported about this, your office sent its annual report to Congress
Correct.
that revealed the hard data behind the agency's diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. You all call it DEIA.
Correct.
In those initiatives and programs. As of September of last year, can you give us an overview of what that report revealed?
Yeah, the report is a fairly comprehensive look at how the agency is doing across a number of dimensions based on the mandate from Congress. One, we look at the workforce diversity at the agency, just like any other organization where you want to be able to represent a broad segment of society as part of our employee base. We look for the best talent everywhere. Then we also look at supply diversity, how are we doing with vendors, what kind of
Yeah.
diverse vendors, whether it's minority-owned businesses, woman-owned businesses, veteran-owned, and others. And then we also look at the outlook for regulated entities, in other words, credit unions. The items that are most salient for us in terms of performance, we lead the pack. When I say lead the pack, among all the other federal regulators in the supply diversity, around 47.5% of our contracts have been awarded to minority and woman-owned businesses. And that is without having any type of set aside. We don't say, oh, these contracts are only going to a group or that group. It's completely open competition. So
Right.
it just goes to show you that there's a lot of interest, but also capacity and capability for those folks. We also have done very, very well in the program that my predecessor, Monica Davy, supported setting up at the agency, which is the Employee Resource Group. And those are groups that are based on smaller communities within the agency that are formed by way of people's identity or people's interest. So we do have about 40+% of our agency personnel that belong to one of those groups. And again, it really supports that sense of community within the agency. Another thing that we're very proud of is we, for the last several years, have beat the goal from the federal government around employees with disabilities and targeted disabilities.
Hmm.
So that is another thing that, again, there's a segment of society that is often underrepresented in many places. And we like to make sure that we keep our finger on the pulse of that community as well.
I got to say, and this is a weird nerdy thing of mine, I do look forward to you all filing that report each year. I find it fascinating
Thank you.
each year. And it's a beefy report. I highly suggest our listeners go out and find it. I'll probably put the link in the show notes or something. But can you talk more about how the NCUA is doing as it relates to women represented in the agency's workforce?
A big part of our program is doing recruitment outreach and being out there.
Hmm.
Again, as I mentioned before, looking for a broad segment of society, make sure that they're properly and adequately represented. And that doesn't mean that we pick people by group or pick people by merit,
Hmm.
but we just want to make sure that everybody has access to the opportunity. So we do a lot of work making sure that we visit universities, we attend very specific events to attract the right talent. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things around women is having a lot of support. And part of that support comes from the Employee Resource Group. It's actually called SWAN, is supporting women at NCUA
Hmm.
and has been one of our more active and successful programs within the
Hmm.
agency.
Yeah.
But then beyond that is also minding not only bringing the talent and supporting the talent, but then how do they advance? So having longstanding professional development programs to help employees, but also make sure that we have an adequate representation of women so that they can move further in both management and
Yeah.
executive level of the agency.
So this is from the report, and I wrote this story when the report came out, but this is from the report that was filed with Congress back in March. But when looking at the overall diversity representation of NCUA executives and managers, representation of women in senior staff positions remained consistent from 2022 to 2023 at 49.1%. And the report continued, minority representation increased from 18.2% in 2022 to 19.3% in 2023. Having said all of that, what did those figures indicate to you?
One of the things that it indicates to me is we are continuing to perform well, and again, there's always room for improvement. But we have a strong, diverse leadership bench when you consider both gender, race, national origin. So, from that perspective, we're hitting the mark. But like I said, we can continuously do better. Like any other diversity, equity, inclusion program, we look at what are our biggest challenges. And for example, one of the areas that the report shows is that Hispanic representation, for example, is not where we would like it to be.
Yeah.
And so we are actually leading some innovative measures to make sure that we seek and identify the right talent from that group, namely looking at Hispanic serving institutions throughout the nation and building new relationships so that we can kind of form some feeder programs that focus in making sure that we attract top talent from that population as well. We continue to be vigilant about participation, retention of people, because it's not only about bringing them in, it's also about making sure that they stay. So all the groups that we look at, and even though the name of my office is Minority and Women Inclusion, we do touch on a lot more or a broader base of groups within the agency. So again, this is a lot about educating also internally agency leaders and our employees of the value of making sure that we attract the best talent and that people have equal access to opportunities.
Yeah. This next question, I realize you weren't exactly leading the department, but you were at NCUA at the time. But at the time, we thought, and this was back in 2019, we thought in the newsroom it was a really good and interesting sign that the credit unions industry adopted DEI as the eighth cooperative principle. Was there a reaction? Did you have a reaction in the office when that happened to that news?
I mean, absolutely. We were definitely thrilled that it had come to the forefront of the discussion within the credit union movement. And what I understand or see as very cohesive within this discussion is the fact that DEI, in and of itself, is in perfect alignment with the not for profit, people helping people ethos of the movement. So it is quite a natural evolution, I would say,
Sure.
going from the seventh principle to the eighth principle being DEI. So it's a natural landing place for us on our congressional mandate to assess diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it couldn't have come at a better time because there is that principle that is also looks to focus on that, on the work that we do. So because of that, and as part of our mandate, congressional mandate, we continue to support DEI development within the industry. You definitely know about our NCUA DEI summit that we do every year, the credit union diversity self-assessment, which is a voluntary self-assessment. We put out
Mhm.
some information like supply diversity guidebook that we have online to help people, credit unions develop their supply diversity programs. And then we also engage with the industry regularly in industry events. So we're really proud of being able to connect. And from time to time, we actually have interesting reactions from people that we meet in credit union events saying, I didn't know that NCUA would be here because they only see us as the regulator, right? Like as a little cop on the beat. But we also want them to understand that we have a vested interest in making sure that the industry and the movement succeeds. And that's why we're out there.
Well, let's talk in a broad sense about the industry. How do you feel, from your position, the credit union industry is doing with the issue of DEI?
It's building up. It's been building up over a number of years.
Hmm.
Even before it was adopted as the eighth principle. And then you see organizations from the American Credit Union, other organizations like Inclusive or AACUC, they're all including or incorporating very important, relevant issues related to diversity and inclusion. And one of the things that we under our mandate and being out there is that credit union diversity self-assessment. Basically, that helps us keep a pulse on the industry DI posture.
Hmm.
And we know that some credit unions don't have the time or the resources or maybe the expertise to focus on DEI or to respond. But based on what we have seen, one, there is the people that are in the journey. And for example, some people that have been responding to our assessment, you see that there is an improvement year over year in their capacity. And we look at a few dimensions. We look at the dimensions on how they do in workforce diversity, how much the leadership is focused or supportive of DEI. We look at supply diversity. We look at their own efforts to monitor their performance around DEI, and then
Hmm.
ultimately how they share or how much transparency they have with their constituents, whether their community or the industry at large. So overall, they're doing well. They're having more consciousness. In terms of responses that we only get about 10% or so of credit unions
Yep.
responding. But notwithstanding that level of response, it gives you an idea. It doesn't speak for the entire industry, but it gives you an idea of where the industry is.
Yeah, so you did mention it, and you're kind of talking about it there, the credit union diversity self-assessment. Again, it's a voluntary thing. It was launched back in 2016. You guys have had, like you were saying, you get about 10% response. Other organizations in the industry that try to do a DEI self-assessment thing, they also get about that percentage, just so you know. It's always a bit of a struggle. So can you make the case for why more credit unions should take part in this?
One of the things that we have seen happen also is that, yeah, we get 10% that respond, but fortunately, a lot more people anecdotally have used the tool, even come to us and say, hey, we're not in a position to respond, but we have been using the tool internally to advance diversity and inclusion. So we see it as a great tool, first of all, for any credit union that wants to start their journey and or grow in DEI to see where they're at. So to us, whether they submit it or not, what we really care is that they review their own practices, where they are,
Hmm.
and they look at where they are on the 5 dimensions, and then decide what they can do, where they are, and how
Yeah,
far they want to go with it. Now, the self-assessment, as mentioned before, is voluntary. When we receive the information, it's handled confidentially. Sometimes people,
sure.
as the regulator, they say, hey, I don't want to give them information that I don't need to give them. So something that happens. But one of the things that is, I think, critical is being able to at least look at where you are, and then from that moment on make decisions, make a conscious intentional decision of which direction you want to take with your credit union when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion. You might not be able to grow in every single area, but
Hmm.
in what areas you can effect change and benefit from it, it's really transformational for a lot of credit unions, not only in bringing innovation, bringing more talent, but then also having a more innovative products that can really, really make a difference, not only for their communities, but also for their financial results internally.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. We also get off the record comments from credit union leaders. They are interested in the results, but they're not going to fill it out. And you're like, come on, what's happening? And so it's very strange. They're interested in the results, but they don't all want to participate. Anyway,
Yeah.
I do hope from, our perspective, we like data. I'm sure you do too.
Correct.
And, we hope more people do take part in this because we like to see the honest data about what's going on.
Correct. Absolutely.
So I want to ask, how do you feel, Miguel, about why your work is important for the credit union industry and the NCUA?
One of the things that we say in the diversity, equity, inclusion world is the notion that if you don't intentionally include, you're going to unintentionally exclude. So this is a exercise of continuous vigilance and continuous awareness about how we do our business, and how we do our business. Our biggest assets are the people. So organizations can engage in inclusion and equity, which, by the way, equity is not the same as equality. It doesn't mean equal outcomes for everyone. It means equal access to opportunity. But when it comes to that, it supports delivering that level of fairness and not only advancing in business outcomes. I think one of the things that is critical also is, from a cultural point of view, diversity, equity, and inclusion is essential to make sure that you create the type of experiences within an organization or an industry where over time build the type of beliefs that you want in your people, so that their actions and the results reflect that. So I think for us within the NCUA, it's definitely value proposition to not only bring the best talent, keep the best talent, and keep them happy, because then you want to get that discretionary effort. But then from the credit union side is enhancing that unique value proposition. What is it that you offer to your communities that is different from other entities, that is different from banks or other fintech entities? So there's a competitive advantage that comes from diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's all kinds of research, especially in the business side, around the positive impact is undeniable, is consistent.
Hmm.
So to me, the work that we do in supporting the industry in that direction, anecdotally and through the self-assessment, we have seen that it makes a big difference.
As a former marketer, I do agree with that statement 100% as far as how to make credit unions for them to be able to really show the difference between banks. This
Right.
is one really easy way to do it. But anyway, okay, last question on this segment. Coming up in July, you talked about it, is the NCUA's 2024 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Summit. I think it is July 9th through 11th. Yes, right here. It's in Minneapolis. First of all, that is the best and possibly only time to be in Minneapolis. Second, this event has become incredibly important and well attended. What can we expect from this year's summit?
The summit every year, I mean, this is a fourth, actually the fifth summit, but the fourth in a
Hmm.
row because we got interrupted by the pandemic before that. That we have had every year. It seems to be getting better and better. My staff surprises me all the time, bringing better speakers, better panels, and the sort. So I'm glad that we hear very good feedback from folks. We have moved it from November to July because November proved a little bit more difficult for some of our folks. It's an end of year time. So we're hustling right now to make the best event possible for July. But this year, we're going to have a few more, workshops, more interaction between the attendees, longer session on strategic planning. That was a very popular session, standing room only last year. So we're
Yep.
going to do a bit more in depth on that. And then credit union panels where credit unions are sharing, their different levels of experience in the DIA journey. The theme this year is DIA here to stay. You know that DEI has become a hot button out there, and we just want to make sure that the industry knows that it's being supported in making
Yep.
sure that this continues to be a competitive advantage for our movement.
Well, I'm looking forward to the show. And honestly, Minneapolis is a very incredibly credit union friendly city and also cooperative friendly city. They do have, and I'll tell you and anybody who's going, Fair State Cooperative Brewery. Really good beer.
Yeah.
So it's right there in Minneapolis. Check it out.
Very nice.
Let's see. Okay, this is the final segment, Miguel. This is all about you.
Well,
So,
okay.
okay.
Yep.
You, from our research and everything I was reading, you are originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico, yes?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you go back and visit?
Absolutely. Actually, a lot of my family, most of my family is still there. My father is still at the island. My sister and her daughter in the island. Of
Hmm.
course, a ton of aunts and uncles as well. So
Yeah,
I do make a point to go there 3 4 times a year, and but especially to spend more time with my dad, who's older, further out along in
sure.
age. So I like to go and spend some time.
When you go, what are the things you must eat and drink that you cannot get in DC?
I know that there are a couple of Puerto Rican type of restaurants, but they're a bit far away
Yeah,
from where I'm at right now. But anytime I go, of course, I there's some staples that I have to do. There's arroz con gandules, which is not something that I eat often, but it's rice with chickpeas. My grandmother used to make the best of it with roasted pork, which is like a national staple. And then on the pastry side, they have this thing called quesitos, which is almost like it's a pastry that is sugar glazed, but then in the middle it has cream cheese. It is
oh,
delicious. So every time I go, and then if I go by myself, my wife always asks me make sure to bring me some quesitos. So
sure.
I'm double packing for people here.
What do you think about mofongo? I think that's how you pronounce it. Is that correct?
Mofongo, you're absolutely right. It's just
Okay.
mashed plantains, and they put oil and
Oh,
garlic and
it's
salt,
so
and
good.
it is delicious. I love it. I love it, and it's one of those things that anytime, I don't know about you, but there's times that you go to certain restaurants, and if it is a particular type of restaurant, you always ask for that one staple all the time because you want to compare how well they
Yeah.
do it. So that's one of my benchmark type of foods.
I have tried to replicate it and I failed miserably.
Let me know. I'll send you. I might send you. I'm gonna have a recipe for you.
Okay, I please, 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 please. Okay, you are a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. Two-part question. What was the most challenging part of West Point for you?
Wow. Well, West Point is not a walk in the park, as you probably know.
No.
But what I think was most intimidating and difficult is that it is probably the only place I've ever been to where everything works as it's intended to, and everything, the level of discipline and the level of perfection that they demand is continuous and it's pretty high. So it's one of those environments where you always have to be at your top performance every day, whether it's your room and the way that your bed is made, the way that your closet is set
Sure,
up, the way that you
sure.
walk to classrooms, where you walk back, what
Oh my
happens in the
God.
classroom. Everything is
Yeah.
prescribed and everything is ordered and everybody does it and everybody is in the same work style. And we also have a very strong integrity code, which is the honor code, which says that a cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. So
Mhm.
that means that your word is your bond, and it is not tolerated if you fall out of that. So that's something that is not really normal in the outside world, but it is the way that it works at West Point.
Very well said. Second question to this two-parter. Do you miss doing push-ups while being yelled at?
The answer will be no.
Okay, great.
A hard no.
Hard no.
A hard no. But I cannot take away the benefits of continuing to do push-ups. And now that you mention it, it's a good reminder of me that I need to start getting on that bandwagon again.
We'll talk about that later. Same. Okay. If you're taking a long road trip, what are you listening to?
Oh, wow. So these days, because I have a couple little ones running around, I don't have
Hmm.
much time to sit down and read a book.
Sure.
So I do a lot of either listening podcasts or listening to books on tape. I like to listen a lot about culture, organizational culture. There's a book, Change the Culture, Change the Game, that I've been listening to. There's a number of other books on culture. But again, our work is around being change agents. So
Hmm.
I'm very, very interested in not only the technical aspects of what change looks like, but then
Hmm.
also, we effect change on people. And we also have to be
Yeah.
conscious. Some people typically don't like change or prefer not to have to change. So
Yeah.
how do we do that in a manner that is comprehensive, successful, but also being compassionate with the folks that we seek to direct?
All right. Last couple of questions. What was the first album you ever listened to or purchased?
Oh Lord. That's before Walkmans and
Oh,
CDs
yeah.
and all of that.
Same. Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
probably some Latin salsa music when I was still living in Puerto Rico before graduating from high school. El
Nice.
Gran Combo comes to mind, is a Latin salsa orchestra that has been around for 50 years, if not longer.
Wow.
So
Hmm.
that's probably my first one.
Okay. I'm going to look that up. What was the last movie you watched?
So I told you I have a couple of little ones. So a couple of weeks back, a handful of families, yeah, from my kids' elementary school, they met to go see Kung Fu Panda 4. Now, I haven't
Four.
seen the first three, but I don't know whether I have more fun watching the movie or watching the kids' reaction,
Aw.
enjoying the movie because they were beside themselves. But long and short, I do recommend the movie.
Okay. I love that answer. That's great. So, Miguel, if people want to connect with you or get in touch, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me, of course, at NCUA, and the number for my office is 703-518-1650. Again, it's 703-518-1650. Or they can also email me directly at my email address, M as in Mike, Polanco at ncua.gov. Again, it's M as in Mike, Polanco, Polanco at ncua.gov.
Miguel Polanco, Director of the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion at NCUA. Thank you so much for coming on today. It was wonderful meeting you and getting to know you.
Same here, Michael. I mean, it's a lot of fun to sit down and chat with you. So I appreciate it.
Oh, we will chat again. And everybody, for our listeners, please subscribe to Shared Accounts with CU Times anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, you get it. If you want to rate us, we'd love your feedback too. For those of you with questions or comments, feel free to email Natasha over at nchilingarian@cutimes.com, or you can email me at mogden@cutimes.com. Also, this month, exclusively in our executive briefing for subscribers only, we're analyzing credit union and fintech partnerships. It's a revealing look at the tech connections and where credit unions are spending money and with whom. In May, we're doing a full data breakdown of credit card trends to analyze what credit union members want. Again, subscribe to our executive briefing at cutimes.com/subscribe. A new topic each month. Check it out at cutimes.com/subscribe. Thank you so much to our producer, Zach Nyheisel. Join us again next week for more shared accounts with CU Times. Until then, thanks for listening.